What's up, guys? Iceman here. So in this video, I'm going to go over some in-demand items in Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction in its current iteration on battle.net. Now this video is in regards to preparation for Diablo 2 Resurrected, because most of this shit is going to be the same, outside of a few graphic enhancements and things like that. So all this stuff is going to be in demand, and keep in mind these items aren't like the most powerful endgame shit necessarily. Many of them are for endgame slots, but these are just very in demand, where if you find them, if you trade for them, you know, they're gonna retain a lot of their value. So that's part of the importance of this video. All right, so pay attention, dog. Check this out. First off, I wanted to point out Ravenfrost. This ring came out after 1.09 or at 1.09, I don't remember. It was several years into the release of Diablo 2 where they introduced new uniques and rune words and things like that. And this item was very significant because it has the Cannot Be Frozen mod. For most characters, you want to have that mod on a piece of your gear. You only need it one time, all right? Stacking Cannot Be Frozen with two pieces of gear, two Ravenfrost, for example, isn't going to do you any good. So don't bother with that. But the fact that it's on a ring makes it quite versatile for character builds, because you can be a caster or a melee character or an archer or something of that sort, and it's going to benefit you all the same. But keep in mind, this is something important to note. In the sorceress example, right, a caster, or even the elemental droid, and maybe a few others, if you're casting spells on cast frames, being frozen doesn't affect you in LOD Classic, all right? So in Diablo 2 Resurrected, it's most likely going to be the same. However, it still does affect you when you're running and walking, so even on a caster, I generally prefer it cannot be frozen. So it's just something to keep in mind. And this ring is really nice because it has other mods. It has attack rating, so it's great for melee and ranged physical builds. It has dexterity, which really helps most builds, because even if you're not attacking, because dexterity gives you AR and some damage for the Amazon, it's still going to help with your blocking for whatever kind of character you are. It gives 40 mana, which is very useful, and it gives Cold Absorb. So some would argue that this ring is broken for PvP, because you can stack two of these rings and you're going to absorb a lot of cold. Meaning you take far less cold damage, and it can in fact heal you if you resist it enough and you have Absorb stacked. So it's kind of a broken item, many would argue, but nonetheless it's most likely going to be in Diablo 2 Resurrected just how it is now. So find that shit, because these things trade like hotcakes, and it's not super rare. You can generally find one if you go through hell mode and just bust your ass farming Mephisto or something like that in hell. You can find one. You can find them in Nightmare as well. So they're not that rare. They're not nearly as rare as an SOJ. They're about the same rarity of maybe a bit more than a Dwarf Star. So just a tier up from Nagelring and Mantled Heel, basically. Another item that's very much in demand is probably one of the most popular Diablo 2 items, called the Stone of Jordan. Before runes were introduced into Diablo, these were considered the currency in the markets. People would value things like, say, a rare circlet with godly mods. They'd say, I need 40 SOJs for this. They were used as gold because everyone fucking wants one. They're very versatile. At the time, it was the only ring in the game that gave one-to-all skills, and it enhances your maximum mana, which is also a very unique mod. Only a few other items have that ability. But this is a great item. And it's still, even after runes were introduced, it's still a very desirable item. So it can be used in trade and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for this shit. All the time that I've played Diablo 2, and I've put a lot of hours into it, I've probably found 1 or 2 SOJs in total. And one of them was in Path of Diablo, where the drops were actually enhanced because it was a Diablo 2 mod. I think the drops were always considered player 8 drops. So there's that to factor in with how rare that shit is. Mara's is kind of like the SOJ of amulets. It gives 2 to all skills, and it gives all res. It gives 5 to all attributes. Just a lot of builds want to wear this. There are some builds where this isn't an endgame amulet. Like Cat's Eye and High Lords are kind of niche for maybe an Amazon, a Javazon, or a Bozon. And some other builds if you need attack speed breakpoints. If you need to hit a certain attack speed breakpoint, and I'm not going to go on about that because this video is not about that. But it's something else to look into, the attack speed frame rate breakpoints. So, yeah, sometimes you need more increased attack speed on your gear, and sometimes you have to get it off your amulet to hit a certain breakpoint, all right? So, in which case, you won't want to wear Maras. But for many builds, this is a very nice amulet. Now, there are crafted and magic and rare amulets that can potentially roll better in many cases, but Mara's is often like a benchmark where, is this shit even better than Mara's? Is kind of what runs through your mind when you find a pretty damn decent rare amulet that gives 2 to all skills, for example, or 2 to a certain character skill. So, yeah, Mara's is a fine item, and it's quite valuable and very tradable. Now, upon ladder reset, many will find that the Sorceress is a very popular character. People like the Sorceress because she's the one character in Diablo 2 that has a precise teleport skill in her skill arsenal, all right? There are other characters who can teleport in one way or another, like the Assassin has Dragonflight, where if there's an enemy that you can click on, you can teleport to that enemy and kick it as long as it's not through a wall. And the Barbarian can jump, but the Sorceress can actually teleport, and she can teleport through walls and shit. So she's very efficient for farming bosses in certain areas and just getting through the game fast, at the beginning especially. So, like 90% of the fucking characters make a Sorceress at the beginning. Ice Boy generally isn't one of them. I would go the Amazon or some other route. But the Sorceress is very popular, all right, for those reasons. So, with that being said, her set pieces, like Tal Rasha's set, a few of them in particular are very much in demand early on in Diablo 2 and are always tradable and always to be on the lookout for. This amulet has a synergy with the armor, and it gives you more cast rate and I think some MF or some shit if you put a belt on as well. So this has like a 2 and 3 piece set bonus you can get, so you don't have to wear the whole set, but the amulet and the armor are the most valuable parts of the set. And then some folks have a trio where they'll use the amulet, the armor, and the belt, and there'll be a nice synergy that you get from that. So this amulet is very important. And here's the armor. So this is another piece that's kind of rare, and those 2 parts are the most rare parts in the Tal Rasha set. You'll find a lot of Tal Rasha's crests and things like that, and lidless eyes, and fine spun cloths before you'll find generally an armor or an amulet. So the armor is very rare as well and very tradable. So early on especially, folks want the Tal Rasha stuff. So keep an eye out for that, because you can either use it for yourself and trade. It's very protective. It gives skills. The amulet does anyway. It gives magic find, which is very important. The armor has a very low strength requirement because you don't want to blow too much strength on a Sorceress. Things like that. And here's Aki. This is a very desirable item. Again, because of the sorceress. You know, the reasons behind why everyone makes a sorceress at the beginning of the ladder reset. And even after that, even endgame, the sorceress is still probably the most commonly played and made character, alongside maybe a Hammerdin or something like that, a paladin character. But Aki is kind of the cheap jack of all trades when it comes to sorceress weapons, because it gives 3 to all skills, it gives cast rate, it gives mana per kill, which is often underlooked, it gives MF, it gives all resistances, energy and vitality. Many would say the teleport mod is extremely annoying to the point where it's unusable. I've never really found it to be unusable because of that. Sometimes it saves your ass, sometimes it kills you. Because it has this effect where a 25% chance to cast level 1 teleport when you are struck. So enemies that you could be far away from, a few archers maybe, one could just hit you with an arrow, and all of a sudden you'll randomly teleport into a mob that has fanaticism and might and extra strength and all sorts of shit. And they'll just waste your ass. So it'll kill you. But in other cases, you're teleporting around trying to find Mephisto, for example. Mephisto's lair, anyway. And you'll accidentally teleport into a mob, and you'll get stun-locked, basically, but they'll hit you, and it'll teleport you outside of the mob, and it'll save your ass, you see? So I've never really found it to be too much of an issue. If you're in hardcore, you probably don't want to wear it, because it's going to save you sometimes, but it's also going to kill you sometimes. So outside of hardcore, I recommend using this shit until you can find maybe a Hoto or a Death's Fathom or Astuta's Temper. But even against Hoto and Death's Fathom, this is very competitive with those items. Or Astuta's Tempers, rather. Death's Fathom is pretty damn good for a Cold Sork, so it's very rare as well. But yeah, Aki, everybody wants an Aki at the beginning, and you can socket it and put an Ist rune in it and have even more MF. Burrune I included on this list because it's probably the most valuable rune in LOD Classic. Even though it's not the highest rune, there are several runes that are a tier higher than the Burr rune. The Burr rune is the most versatile, and it makes, I would argue, generally anyway, the most godly as fuck items, alright? Outside of Last Wish, which has a lot of Jaw runes, but that's very niche for a smiter / zealer sort of character, or a Kixin or something like that. But in general, and you'll see it in the trade markets, Burr rune is the most valuable rune in most cases, alright? They'll want like a Jaw plus to get a Burr rune. And a Burr will get you like 2 or 3 Zods, alright? And a Burr will get you like a Chom and a Jaw rune and things like that. Or a Burr will get you 2 Sur runes, because 2 Sur runes will make a Burr rune if you transmute them in a cube. But things to that effect, alright? So the Burr rune is very important. I mean, Enigma requires it, Infinity requires it, Beast requires it. It even has a nice basic value where it can give Crushing Blow in a weapon, it can give damage reduction in an armor, helm, or shield. So endgame godly characters would even pop a Burr rune in, say, a Shaco or an Ariats or something like that. Alright, so find the Burr rune and use that shit, in my opinion. Make a fucking Infinity. Which requires 2, by the way. Annie. This item is very desirable, very tradable, and part of the reason being is every character can use it, no matter what build you are. It's worth having an Emmy in your inventory because it only takes up 1 small charm space. And it's one of 2 charms in the game that can give all skills, Annie and the Hellfire Torch, which is actually specific for character classes. But Annie, however, is not. It just gives straight up 1 to all skills no matter what character you are. And it gives all attributes, it gives all res. Basically, with a magic small charm, which would be its next competitor in line, you can get up to 11 per any resistance, any in particular resistance. And for all res, you can get at max 5 to all res on a small charm, whereas Annie in itself can give up to 20 all res. And that's not even mentioning the all attributes and the one-to-all skills and the experience gains. So it's more valuable by far than any potential small rune in the game or any other kind of charm. Not small rune, but small charm. It's more valuable than any fucking charm in the game outside of a Hellfire Torch. And you can only have one Annie on a character at a time. And the same goes for the torch. So here's the torch, and all the same shit can be said about it, alright? I mean, it's endgame stuff. Look at this fucking thing. Many would argue this thing is overpowered, because there's such a power creep after you pop this thing on. So early on in the ladder, I mean, it's just more practical to trade for a torch. I would often find myself not doing that. I'd get a burr rune, and they'd say, Iceboy, you gotta get a torch with that. But I would think, no, I want to save for an infinity so I can finally kill shit with my lightning sword. So I'd go as far as to not get a torch, even though there's a massive power creep. But in many cases, and it's just more logical, you probably don't want to follow those footsteps. You probably want to just trade for a torch as soon as you can. Because 3-to-wall skills, you can't get that on a Shaco. That's 2-to-wall skills, and it's a helm slot. It's very valuable. It's just, you get massive skills with this, and it takes up 2 small slots in your inventory. And of course, in order to get Annie, it's random. You have to fight Diablo Clone, who randomly spawns in Hell games based on SOJ sold to merchants, I think. I think there's some tricks on trying to find what server Diablo's on or what realm or something like that. But it's kind of a random event. So the last time I played LOD Classic on Battle.net, I feel like I've seen Diablo Clone in 1 or 2 games in total. All the time I've played that for several months. So basically, if you hunt them down, or sometimes you'll have your homies in a game and they'll message you, they'll say, hey, Diablo Clone's in my game, bring in your Kixin, or bring in your Smiter, because I can't kill him with my shitty Barbarian. You know, things like that. Or Sorceress. You cannot kill him with a Barbarian. You can kill him with a Frenzy Barbarian. I've done it before, actually. With Grief and Breath of the Dying and some Crushing Blow, things like that. But yeah, you can kill him with a Frenzy Barbarian, but that's beside the point. It's kind of a random event. And some, I think, sell SOJ. Basically, the way he spawns is from all the fucking bots that are farming SOJs and runes. And they'll sell SOJs to merchants, and there might be some manipulation going on, but that's how they'll farm them. Hopefully the bot thing is diminished in D2R, but I don't know. I might be hoping for too much. Let me know what you guys think. Do you know if the bots are still going to be a big thing in D2R? And if they are not, some might argue the case that rune drops should be increased, because many would argue in the past that runes were so damn rare because the bots were kind of made to farm them and sell them on websites, or the other way around. There's some weird theories about that stuff. All right. So Enigma is a very in-demand item. It takes 2 of the most valuable runes in LOD Classic, which are the Burr, and then probably second to Burr would be the Jaw rune. Enigma gives the teleport skill to any character, so this allows all characters to now teleport. So you'll see the vintage Hammerdin emerge after folks start getting enough currency to make an Enigma, because in some cases they're more efficient farmers than even a sorceress once they can teleport and once they have decent gear. So, but many builds pretty much demand an Enigma, like a Wind Druid, for example. It's just effective if you can control your minions and teleport onto enemies and telestomp them, is what they call it. You'll spin your tornadoes at them, and your minions will attack them, and your hurricane will be right up in their face, and things like that. So this is a very important item. And Amazons, I like them on the Amazon as well. Some Bozons even use it, but I like it on the Jabazon, because it helps you control your mercenary. If your mercenary has Infinity rune word on him, which break enemy lightning resistance and other resistances and immunities. It breaks lightning immunities for a lot of enemies. He has to be within a certain proximity of the enemies, so you'll run away from him and he won't catch up to you. So what Enigma allows you to do is teleport, and when you teleport, your merc teleports with you, and he'll land in the same spot you land. So all of a sudden, he'll be right where you want him to be, and his aura will then affect the enemies near you again. See? So you could always keep his aura on the enemies if you're good, all right? If you're strategic. So that's why it's a very important item. And it has just... Many would argue this shit's overpowered. It gives a ton of strength, so you can pump up your vitality once you have this thing on, and respec your character. It just gives a lot of nice things. All right, 2-to-wall skills, the run walk I really like, a ton of MF, not quite as much as Skull Desire, but considering how godly it is with other stats, it's often the go-to armor, and many would argue that's fucked up. Last item. Infinity. Yep. Fuck. Oh, my bad. Okay. Infinity is an item that I'm going to try to get. One of the most expensive rune words. So, there it is. It gives the conviction aura to break enemy immunities. You put this on your mercenary, and all of a sudden it opens everything up, where you can make a viable lightning sork who can run the Chaos Sanctuary and kill other things. You can make a very viable Javazan and other builds. Sometimes even cold sorks use it. Even though it doesn't break many cold immunities, it still pierces the shit out of the enemies who aren't immune to cold. It pierces their resistance even more. And fire as well. So yeah, Infinity is very desirable, all right? So... that's one to save up for. You want to make it an ethereal item and put it on your merc, an ethereal polearm, 4-socketed elite. So nonetheless, if you will, like the damn video. Let me know what your thoughts are on this list. What items do you think are the most in demand? And are you looking forward to playing Diablo 2 Resurrected? Let me know in the comments below. Become a patron if you want. I appreciate my patrons and those who support me. Links in the description below. And I'll talk to you all soon. Peace be with you.